Classmates, class has started. Today we will learn about the checkbox component. The checkbox component is a checkbox component. It is one of the basic components of graphical interfaces, commonly used in business scenarios where multiple options need to be checked, such as multiple choice questions in questionnaire surveys, etc. Next, let's dive into today's study together. In Uni APP, you need to use the checkbox group component to wrap around the checkbox component to achieve multiple selections. The checkbox group component is a multi-selector. It is internally composed of multiple checkbox components. It has only one change property, which is an event handling property. In the checkbox group component, when the selected items change, the change event is triggered. The values of the selected items are in event detail value, and this value is an array. It contains the values of the selected checkboxes. When obtaining the values of selected checkboxes, this is often used. Let's look at some basic attributes of the checkbox. The first attribute of the checkbox is value. The value attribute is the identifier of the checkbox. That is to say, when the value of a checkbox selection changes, the checkbox group's change event is triggered, carrying the value of the checkbox. Each checkbox is checked or unchecked, can be handled in the checkbox group's change event to obtain an array of values including selected checkbox items. The disabled attribute indicates whether the checkbox component is disabled. The checked attribute indicates whether the current item is selected. Checked is true, indicates selected. Checked is false. The current checkbox is not selected. Not checked. Color indicates the color of the checkbox. Let's take a look at an example of checkbox component usage. First, look at its basic usage. The basic usage of it is very simple. Checkbox component and basketball show here, but this kind of usage cannot be used normally in actual business. Why? Because checkboxes often appear in groups, even if this group has only one checkbox component. So, according to the requirements just now, checkbox components must be placed inside the checkbox group component to be used. So this usage, just for demonstration, not used in actual business. In actual business, must be wrapped by the checkbox group component, just like this. In this checkbox group component, there are three checkbox components. The value attribute value of the first checkbox component is BB. This is its value. This indicates the text displayed on the page. This value attribute represents an identifier of the checkbox component. Simply put, it's built into the checkbox component, used for recognition by the system or code. Accurately speaking, each checkbox component should have two values. One is displayed on the UI interface. Basketball. This is the text displayed on the UI. The value displayed on the page, which is the inherent identifier of the checkbox component. That is the value attribute. It represents the value that the checkbox can be recognized by internally in the system or code. This can only be used for logical processing. The value attribute of a checkbox component is unique. Look at these checkboxes can be checked separately. We'll not use this text as the internal identifier, because this text is only used to display information. Sometimes the displayed text is very long. Next, take a look at the disabled attribute, indicating a disabled component. These checkboxes are also wrapped by checkbox group. In this group, a total of 3 checkboxes. Among these 3 checkboxes, Two are disabled. The displayed text is basketball, football. The tennis checkbox is not disabled, so the first two checkboxes are gray, unable to be selected. The tennis checkbox can be selected. For example, remove the disabled attribute. Take a look. The football checkbox can be selected. This is the disabled attribute. When the disabled attribute is true, or directly add a disabled attribute, the corresponding checkbox will be placed in this gray state. This situation means you cannot select or deselect. This is the disabled attribute. Next, take a look at the checked attribute, mainly used to control whether the checkbox is selected. When the checked attribute of the checkbox is true, the default state of the checkbox is selected. Please see if the initial state is like this. None of the three checkboxes are selected. The initial state is not selected. Using the checked attribute value to be true, its default state is selected. Of course, the checked attribute can also directly set the checkbox to be selected by default. After default selection, it can be changed. Move this checked attribute down here. Now in this case, basketball and tennis options will default to selected. Refresh. Basketball and tennis options are selected by default. This is the checked attribute. Next, look at the color attribute. The color attribute is mainly used to control the color of the checkbox when selected. There are basketball, football, tennis, and ping pong. A total of 4 checkboxes. They have different colors respectively. The first checkbox component. The color value of the check mark is $FFCC33. The second color value is red, indicating red. The third color value is indicates black. Also added an alpha value in the back. This alpha value is equal to 0.3, indicating 30% transparency. If you change 0.3 to 0.7, you see that transparency has changed. This alpha value is transparency. Finally, this indicates the color is black. The color attribute indicates the color of the internal check mark of the checkbox. This color can be represented in multiple ways. Specific color names, color numbers. You can also use RGB and RGBA, these two forms. The basic usage is without the color attribute. Generally, the default is this color. Let's take a look at that change event again. Just now, we talked about the checkbox group component, which uses an event called change. To handle that change event, let's see what that handlet Kanga method does here. Inside here are 3 checkboxes. The 3 checkboxes displayed on the page are basketball, football, and tennis. The corresponding value attributes are basketball, football, and tennis. Now, through this handlet Kanga method, we can get the selected values of this group of checkboxes. Just now we talked about what the selected value on the checkbox looks like. Where do you get the selected value of the checkbox? Get the value from event detail value. It's an array. Let's see how handlet Kanga method handles it. Let's select an option. Now change the option. Check the option basketball. Did the change event occur? It happened. In the event handling, what do you first see? Display detail value in the console. It's an array. Inside this array is now one element with a value of basketball. What's displayed on the page in the end? Basketball. How is this value handled? It's just concatenating the elements of this array with a semicolon. Now, this array has only one value, basketball. I'll select the tennis option again. There are now two elements in this array. The length is 2. One value is basketball. One value is tennis. Concatenate the elements of this array with a semicolon. After returning it to that value variable, it's displayed here. Why is it displayed on this page? The value variable is bound here, so it can be displayed. For example, select the football option again. Now there are 3 elements in this array. I'll uncheck the basketball option again. This array returns 2 having only 2 elements. The values are football and tennis. Now concatenate the elements of this array with a semicolon. That's football, tennis. The final value is placed in that value variable. So, to get the value of the checkbox group component, you use detail value, and then store it here in that value variable. This allows you to get the value of this group of checkboxes through that change event on the checkbox group, whether checked or unchecked. The change event is triggered. You see, it will trigger the change event regardless. The contents of this array are constantly changing. It's about getting the values of this array. This array reflects the values of the selected checkboxes inside the checkbox group. This checkbox last attribute, the change event attribute. Let's look at a demo again. First, the checkbox group component. Its change event handling method is the handle change method. Each checkbox component's attributes come from the list array. In this list array, there's an swim object. The swim object's value is swim. The run object's value is run. The food object's value is food. The checkbox value attribute uses item value. The key attribute also uses it. Then, what's displayed on the page is item, title, loop rendering as 3 checkbox components. Then perform the check operation. You see, the contents of this array have changed. What does the handle change method do? Display detail value in the console. What you get now is an array. Look, now this array has swim and run. Check the food option again. Swim, run, and food. Now all unchecked. It's an empty array. Check run and swim options. In this way, you get the values of the selected items. It's an array stored in the value variable. Below, there's a get selected value button. Click the button to execute the handle click method. It's just displaying the value variable's value in a pop-up. See how it's displayed. Inside this value variable are the values of the just selected items arranged in an array. Then concatenate the elements of this array with a semicolon. Look, swim, run. Change the selected items. Swim, food. Change again. Food. No selected items. Empty. Select again. Swim, run. Today, let's end here. Classmates, today's main sharing is some uses of the checkbox component in Uni App. The main attributes are the value attribute, disabled attribute, checked attribute, and so on, as well as a default event provided by checkbox group, the change event. Finally, combined with V for loop rendering. A case of dynamically generating checkbox components and obtaining the selected results was completed. The checkbox is a component frequently used in graphical interfaces, especially in form operation interfaces. It has a high frequency of use with form components such as input boxes, radio buttons, etc. Hope everyone learns carefully. This class ends here. Thank you all.